At this point in time, we are ready to talk about divisibility. And this concept is one of the building blocks of a huge branch in mathematics called number theory. So what does it mean to say the word divisibility? First of all, we're going to start with two numbers, n and d, which are both integers, and we want d to not be equal to 0. We say that d divides n if and only if there's an integer k such that n is equal to d times k. So first of all, the symbol for divisibility is d slash n, not to be confused with a fraction notation. So please be careful. And so what does it mean to write d slash n like that? This means that d divides n. So in other terms, n can be written as d times some integer. That's what this notation means. So for example, I could say 5 divides 40. And why does 5 divide 40? It is because 40 is equal to 5 times 8. 8 is an integer. Now notice I did not write 5 divided by 40 equal to, 5 times 8. I don't treat this symbol, divisibility, like an operator. It's not like a plus or a minus or whatever. It is just to replace the word divisibility or divisible or divides. So that's what the symbol means. It is not to be treated like an operator, like a plus or a minus or multiplication. So we don't put an equal next to it, basically. Okay, so the definition above says that if n and d are integers and d is not equal to 0, then we say n is divisible by d if and only if n is equal to d times some integer. And keep in mind that this is an if and only if statement, which means we can go from the left to the right, or we can go from right to the left. What do I mean by that? I mean that if something is divisible by d, if a number n is divisible by d, then n is equal to d times an integer, and vice versa. If I discovered that d times some integer is equal to n, then I'll know automatically that n is now going to be divisible by d. There are other ways of saying divisible. We don't have to always use that word. So instead of saying d divides n, we can say n is a multiple of d, or d is a factor of n. Also, we can say d is a divisor of n, or d divides n. So there's multiple ways of talking about the notation d slash n. So in the examples, we're being asked, is 21 divisible by 3? So how can I write this using the notation that we learned? I can write does 3 slash 21. I could say that. That means does 3 divide 21? So in other terms, is 21 a multiple of 3? The answer is yes, because 21 is 3 times some random integer. As a matter of fact, the integer that you would have to pick would have to be 7, and it would work. Now what about the next one? It says 40. Does 40 divide negative 5? So 40 slash negative 5. Is that true? The answer is no, it is not true. Because negative 5 is not 40 times an integer. There is no integer that we can place right here to get negative 5 at the end when we multiply by 40. As a matter of fact, the number would have to be negative 1 over 8, which is exactly a rational number. That's not an integer. So we say that 40 does not divide negative 5. So how do we say 40 does not divide negative 5? We write the slash notation and we just cut it. That means does not divide. So the next one says, does 28 divide 7? And again, it does not, because 7 is not equal to 28 times some integer. Finally, again, with the 54 and the 6, 54 does not divide 6. However, 6 divides 54. So if the numbers were backwards, then the operator would, or the operation would work, and we would have yes as a solution. Because in that case, 54 would be 6 times an integer. As a matter of fact, it's actually 9. So in that case, it would work. So be careful to the order of the numbers on your notation. The first one, second one, order matters.